I'm fine.
This is COLM for IFL TV. Delighted to be joined in San Francisco. You were actually just singing us in there. Do you want to sing in this interview, Frank, or are you not really? You don't have those confidence levels, do you?
I have the confidence levels, but I'm just not sure it's what people want to see right now. Should we end with it? Because a lot of people might not make the end of this interview, so that way we don't have to. Or it might retain the viewership till the end just to see how bad the voice is. I don't know.
That's the business mind coming in. This is going to be a little bit different. We're not even going to talk about healing progress. Well, we might a little bit, but I've been eager to do this with you, Frank. So obviously, like, people know your story. People know, like, you still get referred to as the T-boy, but I want to even go before that. Like, when you were a kid and you were growing up, you grew up in Romford, right?
Yeah.
When you were growing up, what was your goals and aspirations? Like, when your parents were asking you, what do you want to be when you're older, Frank? Like, what did you want to be? What did you want to do?
I wanted to. Early days, my family were all in. They worked in different businesses, and my father had a business. My stepdad was a car dealer, and early days, when I was probably about 9 or 10 or 12, I used to go on Auto Trader and try and help my stepdad buy cars. And every night he'd come home from work, and I understand it now because I'm older, but he'd come home from work, and I'd be like, right, I've been on Auto Trader, here's 300 Estoril Blue BMW M3s, right? And he'd be like, yeah, all right, it's 8 o'clock at night, like, yeah. But every day I'd be like, right, I found more BMW M3, and there was this book like called the Glasses Guide book, which basically gave you the value. It came out every month of the value of what cars should be for sale for, right? So I used to look in it and be like, right, 2003 plate M3, or maybe a few years before that. You should be like, right, that should be 40 grand. Oh, it's 36 on there. That's one. I'll print that one out for him. You should come home with stacks of them. My dad had a travel business, and I used to just I used to help do the in the early days. Used to help do the itineraries on your bookings. Yeah. Well, like typing them out and sending them out. And then I used to sell car key rings as well. So the key rings of the cars that my stepdad, this was when I was about 13, 14, used to sell, used to bring me the key rings back. And like I'd have like a Lamborghini on eBay. I was shipping car key rings all around the world. I was the biggest car key ring salesman in the Romford area at the time. But I always wanted, I think as most people, not saying everyone, because not everyone's driven by the same thing, but a lot of people are driven by money, and at a young age, obviously, you're more impressionable. And I always wanted to do something that made money. And at that point, a lot of people, especially from like the Essex area, there was a lot of stockbrokers. So I thought, I'd be a stockbroker. Didn't know what it meant, but I knew someone who was a stockbroker and he had a Ferrari. So I thought I'd go and do that. And then, as fate would have it, I met Eddie when I was 14, and the stockbroker dream went out the window.
But like, there was times, obviously, like, you were in school, right? And you had maybe exercises in school to say, right, I want to be this, I want to be that. You know, some people say I want to be a doctor. What did you want to be? Like, what was that career that you wanted to be?
A builder, funnily enough. No, that was good, wasn't it? I can't really remember. I just always wanted to, like, I wasn't the most academically successful kid, and I still don't understand to this day how you're, like, at that such a young age, an impressionable age, you're taught that your life really depends on the success of those years, which I know, like, that you got to try, you got to work hard, but it's actually not a good way for kids when you're 15, 16, 14, you're doing tests. I don't understand it because, I got a D in business studies. Like, so you'd think, he's got no chance running a business, or like, as a 16-year-old, you think he's got no chance running a business. Now I do what I do. So it's the idea of being tested. You work 8 years and then you're sort of judged on a load of tests was crazy to me. But in school, I'd probably trying to be a bit of a laugh, like the class clown sometimes. But there's never really, like, I just wanted to do something that made money. like I say, I had that mindset of like, they got loads of money, I can't do that. I can't even tell you what job it was.
Talk to me about that first interaction with Eddie Hearn. At that stage of Eddie's career, was he known? Did you know who he was? Did you know what he'd done? Obviously, I imagine at the stage it was poker, maybe, or golf.
No, not a clue. Honestly, not a clue. I wasn't like a mad sports fan. Like I had a season ticket at West Ham, but I, my dad was a West Ham fan, so I just followed through. But I wasn't a crazy sports fan, and I met Eddie at Romford Dogs. He was a friend of my dad's. A few people my dad worked with. The company my stepdad worked with sold him cars, and they just said, "Oh, he's really rich. He's got a Bentley outside." And like again, I was impressionable. I saw the Bentley when I was walking in. I was like, "Whose is that?" And I thought, I'll go and get some more money out of him for charity, and it worked. But I didn't have a clue who he was. This was 17 years ago now. I was 14 years old, 31 now, so 17 years ago. So yeah, it wasn't so much because I thought he was famous or it was because he just looked like he had money. And again, I'm not saying that's the right way to live life, but that age is your different mentality.
So you meet him at Romford Dogs, you get a few quid out of him, which is surprising because Eddie's quite tight. When you got a few quid out of him at Romford Dogs, what then was the next step for Frank Smith in order to get yourself your foot in the door as such?
I always wanted to go to work. Like even when I was at school, I always wanted to be in and around. I think because growing up, I was always around offices. Like I was in the office when my dad was working. Like he worked late, and I was always there. I'd go to the car dealership on a Sunday and sit in the car dealership while they were selling cars. So I was always in and around working, and whatever it was I'd go into, I wanted to do that. So after meeting him, he gave me his business card, and I just peppered him with emails from my mum's email address. And it was like,
From your mum's email
I
address?
didn't have an email address. I was 14. This was 2006. I didn't have an AOL. We had AOL dial-up back then. And I emailed him just relentlessly off my mum's email address. And I was like, "Oh, can I come in and see you?" And I was 14, so he's like, "It's a bit weird. He won't leave me alone." And I think I did some running at like the poker events, just like running about in the summer, like work experience style stuff. And was just made teas, coffees, all that boring stuff. And then when was it? I did it 14 years old, 15 years old. And actually, when I was 15 years old, they overpaid me, but I didn't tell anyone.
Elaborate on that.
No, they paid me too much money. Eddie found out afterwards. He was like, "You cheeky little so and so." I was like, "Yeah, but got to do it." And then I was getting like 20 quid here, 50 quid here off the poker players, for making good teas. I'd be like, someone would say, "There's a laptop there, can you go and put it like 10 yards over there?" And I'd do it and they'd give me 50 quid. I was like, "This is legendary. Do this more often." I thought that's
Did you set the prices or they were just giving you money?
They were just giving me money. I was obviously good crack. So yeah, they were the early days. And then I was like, all right, I'm finishing school and I'm going to go to work. I didn't want to go to sixth form where it was a different time. I didn't want to go to sixth form. Didn't want to go to university. Wasn't interested in that. So can I come and work for you? And it was like a bit back and forth. Like, not really. Don't really think you're the one. Like, I don't think it's right. Like, we haven't got jobs for you. It was a different business back then as well. And I remember when I started, I think the first day they were like, I said, "What should I do?" And they went, "Oh, I can go swimming now. Like, you've got nothing else to do." Like, I was learning how to flick poker chips. Like, I could deal cards. Anything.
So fast forward a little bit from the poker. At what stage do you move from the T-boy to even some sort of admin role? Like, what's the situation there?
Oh no, it took a long time. But I was, after like the T-boy, I was standing outside Romford train station giving out leaflets for like boxing shows. I was standing outside Liverpool Street station giving out leaflets for the darts at 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning as the commuters come off, like me and a team of like 5 of us. And I'd be like, "Yeah." And the idea of rejection at like 16 years old, constantly, it sort of sets you up for the future of being rejected quite often. So they were the early days of just like literally outside train stations. That's what I used to spend a lot of time doing, leafleting. I'd go to like Birmingham, something's happening in Birmingham, go and leaflet at a station in Birmingham. Like, that's what I was doing. And I did that for years, and I was literally just running about all the different, because there was loads of stuff. It was like Leyton Orient, obviously there was the darts, there was snooker, boxing back then wasn't as big, prize fighter, leafleting for prize fighter outside Earls Court, like literally I'd be out there doing that. And obviously when you're walking along the street, because we all do it, like we'll walk on, and there's a 17-year-old trying to give you a leaflet, and you're like, here, what, mate? That was all day. And like imagine like 6 in the morning, freezing cold in like November, and you're like standing at Liverpool Street, trying to give out a leaflet, and everyone's just mugging you off left, right, and centre. And then it used to be like, right, cold call people. So I used to go and sit in Barry's office and just pick up and ring people like, hi, I'm called, but it started as hello, and they'd be like, put the phone down, put the phone down. And then it'd be like, do it again, right, slowly get better. I mean, days and days of just ringing people, and again, just getting completely mugged off, and no one wanted to talk to you. Then selling boxing tickets over the phone, like all this stuff. But it was years of that. It wasn't like I'll do 6 months of being a TV or run around. Like literally years of that across all the businesses, and just get sort of used across them all, and like get sent off. Right, there's the Moscone Cup there. Go and sell programs at the Moscone Cup at York Hall. Go and log cards at the poker, so you'd watch it on the screen and you'd be like, right, that's King of Hearts, like do that for hours in like this TV gallery. So yeah, it was years of all that stuff, but that's what sort of set me up. And then there was many moments, I'm sure, where I was like, mate, this is like hard graft, but it paid off.
What's your earliest memory, Frank, of a time when Barry or Eddie were annoyed with you, angry with you? You were in a situation where you felt like, geez, I might be in trouble here.
I was 16. It was 2 months into my full-time employment. We were at a hotel just outside of Kent. Felt like I was halfway around the other side of the world. Staying in a hotel at 16 years old. We were filming poker at a studio, and it was the final day, the next day. So went back to the hotel, and everyone's like up and about. They're all older than me, and I'm sort of just like watching. Like I couldn't play poker. I wasn't old enough. I couldn't drink. I wasn't old enough. But I'd just sit up and stay up, and like just be like, what's going on here? Like excitable kid. And I think I stayed up till 1 in the morning, which was like that was crazy for me at the time. And I was sharing a room with somebody, and they stayed out a bit longer. And then when they got in, it was like 3 o'clock, and we were supposed to be up at 7 or something. And we set the alarms, on the hotel room where they ring you. And because we went to bed so late, when the alarms went off, we thought someone was prank calling us. So we just unplugged the phones. And it was still dark outside, obviously, so we just unplugged the phones. Then we woke up 2.5 hours later, and we were an hour and a bit late to the filming. And I looked at my phone, and it was just Eddie Hearn. And bear in mind, I've been there full time 2 months. I started crying, and the other guy, James, he was like, I've done this loads of times. Don't worry, no, relax, it'll be fine. And I'm like, what? Right. So we're in the car driving to the studios, and my head's going all over the place. I think, what's my mum gonna say? She's gonna go mental at me. And pull up, and they take me off of my job that I was doing, and they give me like a terrible job. They're like, right, this is what you've got to do now. James, they just send home. They're like, right, just leave, like don't even come in. So I'm sitting there doing this job, and after about 3 hours, Eddie comes in, and he just drops a letter in front of me. Right, bear in mind I'm 16. I open it, final warning. I start crying into the final warning. No, I promise you. Ask him. I'm like, the lips going, like tears into the letter. And yeah, that wasn't a good time. And I had another 7 hours of work after that I had to do. But that was probably the moment that made you either went one way or the other, and that was at the early enough stage in my life where I went, right, really got to crack on with this. My mum went absolutely mental at me. Mental. The letter was very much like, I'm so disappointed in you. I took a huge chance to bring you on here. And yeah, it was interesting times. I remember back in the day, I was on like, I would make it probably like £500 a month. Right, and obviously when you're 16, it's a load of dough. But when you look back at it, you're like literally working 24 days a month. It was all accepted. I accepted it all. This was a long time ago, by the way, so don't judge me. Don't judge anyone. But you look back on it and go, bloody hell, that was hard. But there was so, like I say, there were so many moments. And you know, my mum was the person that really kept me in on so many times where I was just like, what is that? What am I doing here? You know, working like 20-hour days, and she kept me in there. So I've got to credit my mum for it.
Just on that, you know, you say about family. Were you someone that was always family orientated? Do you put a lot of your success down to the beliefs maybe instilled into you by your family?
Yeah, I always had that. It was a work ethic of literally you work, you know, you get what you work for, really. And don't get me wrong, other people have different opportunities in life, but you have to take the opportunity you're given. And you know, like Eddie gets a lot of stick for being in the position he's in, but he worked harder than 99% of the people I know. And yeah, that was installed definitely from my family. My grandfather had his own business, did very well, and like that was always what I knew. I think, and those, you know, when you work so much, you have to make sacrifices on certain levels of your life. And I'm not sitting here moaning about it. Like I love what I do, but you have to have a supportive group of people around you who go, right, like I wouldn't be happy if I wasn't working really hard, you know. And the other person, like my missus, I put a lot of it down to my missus as well, because she keeps me completely grounded. Like I have no ego. What some people may have a view of me, but I don't. I have no ego. I'm very like sort of a chilled person, and I just want to work hard. But she's the one, you know, who's like not unimpressed, but it's very much like, okay, cool, because you're gonna have good days, you're gonna have bad days. Just like, you know, just stay kind of very chilled about it all. And yeah, she's a big part of why I've done well. You know, in the last 7 years, I'd say.
How did you actually meet Emily? How did that interaction come about that you and Emily met? Because obviously, like someone who's involved in boxing like you and her coming from a boxing family, clearly it was boxing that you met her at, right?
Yeah, it was when her brother was fighting Tony Jetta in Sheffield. When was it now? 2016, 2015? October 2015, I think. So yeah, just over 8 years since I met her. It was actually John Wishusen. He walked in and he said, Emily, this is Frank, anything you need? And I already knew she was.
At that point, what was your role?
I've been stalking her on Instagram before that. But my role at that point, I was organising the events, bit of ticketing stuff, like a bit of everything, because we'd always been a business, like it was quite a small team that worked together to put things on. So I was just involved in a lot of different things within the boxing business. He said, Emily, Frank, anything you need, just ask Frank. And I locked eyes with her, and she said from that day onwards she fell in love. She didn't say that.
I love that you have to clarify that, Frank.
No, I just want to, you know, in case I get in trouble for she. I'm very persistent, and after that I was like, right, I'm going to text her every day until she
just randomly text her every day.
Like, do you want any tickets to the fights? Or just ask her questions about work, just so I could keep talking to her.
When you say that, you know, these people that influence your life, how influential has Eddie Hearn been on your life? Because obviously you two are like, on these shows and on these trips, I'm around you both a lot. You're like, your relationship reminds me of me and my brother's relationship. Do you feel like you are like a little brother to Eddie Hearn?
Yeah, you got to imagine I grew up with it. You know, like I've grown up at an age, you know, from 14 I've known him, but 16 really. I've spent more time with Eddie in the last 10 years than I think anyone spent with him, and like the same, you know, vice versa. We literally travelled the world week in, week out, especially over the last 5-6 years, you know, and it is more like a family, and that's because of the business as well. It's a family business. It's always been run like a family business, and we've spending time with someone, you get close with them, and you know we bicker and like we argue, but I think it's good because we're different people. Like people compare me to him, and I'm completely different to him. Like he's the best at what he does, and I think I'm very good at what I do. And as a pair, we're good. You know, we're good together. But I'm not trying to be like him. You know, I don't really have interest in being in front of the cat. Like I'd happily go off to Bali for the rest of my life and sell flip flops, as I've said on many occasions. But as a parent, you know, makes a great parent. Like he's got that work ethic, like I say, that's unrivaled, and you know, many people will question him, say, "Oh, you had this opportunity, you had this," but he's taken it for himself and you know gone to another level with it. So yeah, you know, he's been a big part of my life, and Barry as well. You know, Barry gave me a lot of opportunities at a time where you think, "Oh, some 17-year-old kid, why are we gonna?" And like when I was 21, he said, "Go and sell international TV rights." I was like, "What does that mean?" I don't know what that means, but we'll give it a go. So yeah, 100%. They definitely, like, they're a huge part of my life, and more like a family without being family. And like, I would never work. You know, people would talk about I'd never work anywhere else within boxing, sport. Like I love where I am. If I went and did something else, it would be something completely different than this, if you know what I mean. But I have no intention of like it's like my life. Although it's not my business, it is my life because I've been there so long.
Tell me about a time that you and Eddie have not spoken for a long period of time. Give me an idea as why that happened. Because obviously, like in every relationship, whether it be a partner, a brother, work, you always have some sort of bickering, as you refer to. But has there been a time that you fell out and it was for an extended period of time?
No, never. We talk nearly every day. You know, probably every day. But never. No, look, I'm probably the one person who will be honest with you. You know, because I don't. Like, it's not like I have that relationship where I can just be open about things. And it'd be the same with me. Sometimes we sit there and we talk about what are our biggest faults between us, and he says that I'm always right about everything, and I say, well, you want to be involved in everything, and you know. But no, we've never had a time like, yeah, we like everything. You're not going to agree on every single thing. But it's very much, I'm quite one of those, like, something happens, right, done, move on to the next thing. You know, this is out of the way, what's the point? And, like, you know, it's done. But yeah, we've never had it's crazy, really. Like, we drive each other mad, I'm sure. But yeah, it's a good duo.
You talk about being good for each other and good for the business, that you're one way, he's another. Has there been a time with, for example, you don't need to tell me their name, but a specific fighter where you've really not been able to make that relationship work, or a specific time when you've had to step in between Eddie and a fighter, or anything that springs to mind on that?
I think we all have different relationships with different fighters, you know, and I think we use our strengths of, right, you get on well with this person, you deal with that, I'll deal with this. I think there's been moments where we've disagreed on decisions. Now, one he came out about recently, he said, you know, when we did Luke Campbell against Lomachenko, amazing fight, you know, two brilliant fighters, but I always stood by the fact that it was the wrong decision. I said it at the time. We sat in the room, I said, we're making a huge mistake. And that was led by, and this is something we're not normally done, that was led by Joshua had just lost, oh, we need to do something here. You know, there was a big reaction in the probably in the social media world of, oh, Matchroom are finished. It was like, we got to strike back, and I'm sitting there going, no, it's like it's what it like, chill. He's like, no, we need to do this, and I know, like I know numbers of boxing inside out. It's like all I do, like all day. So like, it's like being an expert in whatever you're in. Like, there is no one more qualified. Like, there's a group of people, but more qualified in terms of understanding numbers in boxing, because it's all I've focused on for the last 10 years or 5 years, whatever. So I looked at it, I was like, that's the biggest massive mistake. We lost a load of money, spoke about it the other day. And that's where it's good, because he, you know, like, I'm quite open. I'm not like a crazy boxing fan. I am your traditional casual sports fan who wants to be entertained. He is a crazy boxing, like a boxing fan, loves boxing, has the biggest passion for it ever. But as a group, put us together, you know, we got both sides of it, and that was a moment where I went, we're making a mistake. He wanted to do it, you know, it's his business at the end of the day, but I'll always have that one over him.
Frank, whenever it's all said and done, and you maybe take yourself off to the Bali sunset and sell the flip-flops, What would be your happiest memory looking back on boxing so far? Because obviously there's more to come.
So far, this is what I was talking about the other day. It's so difficult because we're lucky enough to be in a business where every week, nearly, we get to create moments that you look at and go, wow, we did this. Even just being a small part of it. Being a small part, like the fighters are most important without them, but getting that, like, that feeling. I'm not getting upset, sorry, I've just eaten. But getting that feeling every week of walking out. So it is tough to say, and there's so much more to come as well, because I look back at like 2014 when we did Froch Groves at Wembley. I think it was 2014, yeah. I look back at 2016 when we did Joshua Klitschko. I look back at Taylor Serrano at Madison Square Garden. Joshua Ruiz, not a fight that went the way it should have done, but it's going to be a moment in 70 years, 80 years that people look back on. Do you remember that night AJ boxed? So we're so lucky to be involved in these things over and over again. So like for me, it's so hard to pinpoint to one moment, but I can look back and I sit here now and know there's so many more moments to come as well. And that's what keeps I'm still excited about. Like, I love putting on shows and events, and like Taylor Cameron a couple of weeks back in the 3 Arena, probably the best event I've ever been to. Not just like boxing, but one of the best sporting events in the atmosphere. And that's what's so special about it. But it's hard to pinpoint that one moment because there's been so many. I've been lucky enough to be involved in so many, and I think there's going to be so many more as well. But one thing I want to do, I don't want to be in this forever. Like, I want to be decide to go, right, I've done everything I want to do, and either sail off into the sunset or do something else. But that's a long way off.
Like buy a football club?
Yeah, one day, just for a laugh, see how we get on. Like a non-league Panorama one.
This question is probably one that everyone watching this would love to ask you. Eddie's always spoke about there is going to be a time when he walks away and the business goes to you and you're the one that runs it, all on you. First of all, does that make you nervous in any way, or are you so immersed in this world that you feel that isn't even going to be a difference to how everyday life is at the moment?
I don't think the big change in like the day-to-day running of the bit, like when you talk about the operation of the business, like I already do that now. People optically outside would look and go, "I said, but running the bit, putting on the shows, doing the deals, like that's what my focus is and has been for a long time. So that bit doesn't faze me at all. I think I get compared to Eddie in everything I do. If I was compared to every other promoter out there, people say, oh, he talks all right, but I'm not Eddie. I don't want to be Eddie. I'm never going to be Eddie. And no one can compete with it. There's no one in this industry who's anywhere near what Eddie does. That's the reality of it. It's not because I work for it, but he's the best salesman out there. So for me, it's different. I can operate and run this business and make it successful and keep doing what we're doing. But I'm not sitting there going, like, I'm going to be the same as Eddie Hearn. Like, everyone's different. And you have to deal with it in a different... It's like our press conferences when we do the next gen ones and I'm up there. I know what my strengths are. There's too many people nowadays want to be an expert at everything. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm bad at. I'll give it a go. I'll help with anything. But I know what I'm good at. I know what I can do. So it doesn't really so I don't find it daunting, the side of running the business, because I'm already doing that. Whether people believe I know what I'm doing, like I read a lot of comments, I laugh at them. People say, what does this kid know? That's what I've done for years of my life, is all I know. So that doesn't get to me at all. I think the fact of I'm not going to be Eddie Hearn. So when he goes, I'm not just going to change the way I am and just turn into Eddie Hearn Mark II. But I believe that, my focus is very much the brand, the business, and how do we keep that going, and even beyond when I'm gone as well. How do we keep our brand going like we are in other sports for the next 20, 30, 40 years? Take personalities and characters out of it. That's my big focus.
Do you believe that things will change dramatically when Eddie leaves, and does it kind of give you the thought of, should I go at the same time? Should we both just leave this together? We've done it all together for the past however many years. It's time for something fresh and something new, or is it more of a responsibility on you then to take the reins?
No, I think I would. We'll go when we're ready to go. Obviously, I think the other thing you look at in these what promoters are there coming through in terms of, like, Bob Arum's 90 years old, for example. Like, Al Heyman's not really a face of boxing. Frank Warren's 70 something, I think. You know, and there's not people coming through. Like I say, I'm not overly interested in taking Eddie's position of the face of the business. I think boxing will go into a place. I think promoters are important, but we're trying to put it into a place where you can build a brand, like the Matchroom boxing brand, Top Rank without Bob Arum, or Queensbury without Frank Warren, for example. Like George, I'm not talking on there, but he's not someone who's got his face in front of the camera. I probably do more than other people. But I do think it's going to change, because a lot of these other promoters will retire and move away. But it doesn't take away from the business still being there. And I've got no plans on leaving tomorrow. But at the same time, I can't do 270 nights in hotels a year for much longer than 8 or 9 years, because otherwise I would not sure the missus would be too happy, and it's not sustainable lifestyle long term. But yeah, I don't really think too far ahead. I focus on boxing's such a sport where there's so many changes and shifts day in, day out, that you can't really think too many months ahead, let alone a few years.
Well, Frank, we're over 30 minutes into this. This is going to be part 1. There's part 2, because there's 150 other questions that I have to ask you. I'm going to let you sing that little tune you were singing to sing us out. I forget, but you can sing anything you want, mate. Just something to sing us out.
Give me a song to sing. Just the two of us.
Just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us. Colin and I. Thanks, Smith. Thanks very much, Smith.
Cheers,
I'm fine.